in the order of amendments. These changes are in line with Rule 22.5 of the Rules of Procedure and have been determined after consultation with the rapporteur. Please note the following changes. First, Amendment 16 will come before Amendment 15. These two amendments will be grouped for debate and voted on in this order. If the first one passes, the second will fall. Secondly, Amendments 22 through 26 will be taken in a new order. The new order will be 24, then 25, then 26, then 22, then 23. Once again, these amendments will be grouped for debate and voted on in this order. If one of these votes passes, the subsequent amendments will fall. If you are affected by these changes and have questions, please talk to the procedural advisors. They are available at the table to speak with you about that and to answer any questions. I will remind you of these changes when we reach the relevant point in debate. Colleagues, in light of the number of amendments, we will continue to impose strict limits on speaking time. I should say we will try to be stricter than we were yesterday on speaking time. And we have good news. We have the time clock to my left on a screen, as many of you suggested yesterday, and we appreciate that suggestion. I shall allow the proposer of the amendment to speak for a maximum of 1 minute. Then I will allow the same time for an opponent of the amendment. I shall then ask the sponsor of the draft resolution, Ms. Setterfeld, for her opinion. Following that, I shall put the amendment to the vote. In the interest of time, if there is a very clear majority in a vote on an amendment, the chair will announce the result only. Where the vote is the least bit close, I will announce the number voting for, the number against, and those abstaining from the vote. And I appreciate very much that suggestion from the floor yesterday. As I clarified yesterday, in the event that an oral amendment is proposed, it will be dealt with in accordance with paragraph 10 of Rule 22 of our Rules of Procedure. And I would simply remind members that if there is any objection at all to an oral amendment, it cannot be considered and it will fall. If there's no objection, we'll proceed as we do with other amendments. Thank you very, very much. And we are now ready to begin and resume the consideration of amendments. And I call Ms. Muradova from Azerbaijan to propose amendment number 4. Ms. Muradova, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mir Kishili. I will propose the amendment number 4. In the document, there is no any item underlining the main threat coming to the European security from protracted conflicts. That's why we propose to add a new paragraph after the paragraph number 5. It's formulated on the basis of the resolution on adherence to Helsinki principles in the context of the interstate relations in the OSCE region adopted last year in Helsinki. I call my colleagues to support this amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And would someone like to be recognized in opposition? Yes, the chair recognizes the delegate from Armenia.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемая госпожа Седерфельд, эта поправка полностью сводит на нет те титанические усилия, которые были сделаны сопредседателем Минской группы ОБСЕ после 4-дневной войны, навязанной Азербайджаном. Это первое. Второе. Это попытка задним числом оправдать то кровопролитие, которое произошло 2-5 апреля. Виной тому Азербайджан. Третье. Это попытка для оправдания очередной военной эскалации на линии соприкосновения нагорно-карабахских и азербайджанских вооруженных сил. Четвертое. все это в комплексе сводит на нет весь смысл принимаемой нами резолюции, которая очень четкая и взаимообусловленная. Армянская делегация не может поддержать эту поправку, так как это будет оправданием для будущей войны со стороны Азербайджана. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gagamian. What is Mrs. Sederfeldt's opinion of the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have listened to both the speakers, and when I read the paragraph, I am in favor of it, but I must say that I don't take any part in the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, because that's another issue that we shouldn't handle here in plenum. There is a special rapporteur about that. But when I read the paragraph, for me it's a good one because it talks about the independence of states. So I'm in favor of the paragraph. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I am in favor of the amendments. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And now delegates will vote on the amendments. Will all of those in favor of Amendment 4 please raise their voting cards and keep the cards raised?
It's very clear.
No, it's not. No, we need to count.
Maya, how many? 6. 21. Okay.
Cards down. Those opposed to the amendment, raise your voting cards. And cards down. Those abstaining. Thank you. And it is clear. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Amendments 5, 6, and 7 relate to text in paragraph 6, which is the need for, regarding the need for efforts to settle conflicts. I will therefore group the amendments together for discussion as allowed under Rule 22.7 of the Rules of Procedure. I call on Mr. Gagamayan of Armenia to propose Amendment 5.
Очень важно, чтобы все те наработки, которые есть по урегулированию затяжных конфликтов, и те институты международные, которые профессионально углубились в разрешение этих конфликтов, были бы сохранены. Поэтому предлагается в согласованных форматах. Второе. Как мы знаем, в Хельсинкском заключительном акте и в уставе ООН все 10 принципов имеют одинаковую императивную силу. Поэтому предлагается добавить, а также равных прав и самоопределения народов. Спасибо.
Thank you, sir. Would someone like to be recognized in opposition? The delegate from Georgia.
Procedures.
The Georgian delegation, it's a procedural issue, and Georgian delegation wants to express its own opinion in this regard, if we may.
On our amendment, separate.
On our amendment, separate.
Amendment 6.
Amendment number 6.
That is correct, and I thank the delegates for pointing that out. Since 5, 6, and 7 will be considered together, we will now have a discussion for 1 minute in favor of amendment number 6. The chair recognizes Mr. Usipashvili from Georgia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In paragraph 6, our idea is to delete the word protracted and replace with the word existing, and after the words states involved, add the following: within internationally recognized borders. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And I now call on Mr. Kostunov of the Russian Federation to propose amendment number 7. Sir, you are recognized.
Уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги, мы предлагаем в пункте 6 после слова суверенитета удалить слово «участвующих», подчеркнув, что это всех государств касается, и заменить слова «и при неукоснительном соблюдении на право наций на самоопределение и других принципов, зафиксированных в Уставе». Считаем поправку важной и просим поддержать.
Thank you. Does anyone now wish to speak against any of these amendments, number 5, 6, or 7? The delegate from Azerbaijan, followed by the delegate from Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to note that we have some proposed regarding the amendment number 5. First of all, I want to note in advance that our amendments is not against to anybody, any country. We just want to make the proposal to improve the draft resolutions. So, first of all, we want to support the Georgians' proposal regarding the amendment number 6, but the amendment number 5 will have some notes. In particular, paragraph number 6 is the agreed language from the Helsinki Declaration adopted last year, representing our common positions. Since then, no change in terms of understanding of international law principles has emerged that could justify current amendment to this paragraph. In particular, the proposed amendment is not in line with the understanding of equal rights and self-determination of people as endorsed in UN Charter and Helsinki Final Act. It's clear from these documents that self-determination of peoples can always be exercised in conformity with the territorial integrity of states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the delegate from Ukraine is recognized.
Our delegation also have objection against amendments number 5 and number 7, because for sure the right of nations to self-determination is a very important principle, but it should be and it could be realized that in compliance with territorial integrity, and I support a previous speaker who mentioned it, United Nations Charter, which is very clear about it.
And does one additional delegate wish to speak against an amendment? If not, Mrs. Sederfeld, what is your opinion?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My opinion is that the amendment should be rejected, and we should keep the paragraph as it is, and that's because the paragraph includes the official OSCE language. And I think it's important that we, as members of OSCE PA, stick to the official language. And I can't see that the paragraph really change anything more than the language. So I am against the 3 amendments. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right, you have now heard from the proposers. You've heard 3 additional speakers and from the rapporteur, and we are ready to vote. As I hope you understand, we will vote on amendment number 5. If that is adopted, the other 2 will fall. Then we will vote on amendment number 6 if 5 is not adopted, and so on and so forth. So the question is now on the adoption of amendment number 5. All those in favor, raise your voting cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. And cards down. All opposed. All opposed. Raise your voting cards. Okay, it is clear that the noes have it. All abstentions? Any abstentions? And 2 there, 3 there. So so amendment number 5 is defeated, and we will move now to amendment number 6. All in favor of amendment number 6, raise your voting cards. And cards down. All opposed, raise your voting cards. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I have 28 cards down. Any abstentions? Abstentions, 1, 2, 4 abstentions. 5 abstentions. And the amendment is not adopted. We will move to amendment number 7. All in favor of amendment number 7, raise your voting cards. 5 cards down. All opposed to amendment number 7. And it is clear, cards down, abstentions, abstentions. And so amendment 7 is defeated, as were amendment 5 and 6. We will now move to amendment number 8. And I call on Ms. Abrami Kiene from Lithuania to propose amendment number 8.
Thank you, Chairman. It's, I think, very important amendment. It speaks about necessity to restrict war propaganda. Because living in this world we live now, very toxic world, we should restrict it. But I want to underline that we understand that our countries, many countries of the OSCE, highly value the principle of freedom of speech. And I want to assure you, colleagues, that this amendment and our proposal in no way undermines that principle. Simply, we should make some distinction between freedom of speech and open propaganda of war. This is why I have proposed this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against amendment number 8? Yes, in the back. You're recognized, sir.
Monsieur le Président, il n'y a pas de race humaine. On évoque de nouveau la discrimination raciale. Il y a une espèce humaine et à l'intérieur de l'espèce humaine, il n'y a pas de race.
Thank you very much. What is Ms. Satterfeld's opinion of the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My opinion is that the amendment address further insight into the draft resolution, and I am in favor of the amendment. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Are you ready to vote? All in favor of the amendment, raise your voting cards. Cards down. All opposed? All opposed, raise your voting cards. Okay. It's clear. Are there abstentions to? Right. It is clear. The amendment is agreed to and adopted. Thank you all for your cooperation. I now call Mr. Heinzel from Austria to propose Amendment 9.
Danke, Herr Vorsitzender, werte Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Fast alle der heute in der Welt vorhandenen rund 15.000 Atomwaffen sind im Besitz von den Teilnehmerstaaten der OSZE bzw. auf deren Territorium stationiert. Vor dem Hintergrund der politischen Spannungen zwischen Russland und der NATO scheint jedoch das fragwürdige Konzept der nuklearen Abschreckung wieder mehr Fürsprecher zu finden. Demgegenüber ist der einzig richtige Weg, nämlich die nukleare Abrüstung, zwar insbesondere als eine der Säulen des Atomwaffensperrvertrages völkerrechtlich verankert, aber gleichwohl bisher Gegenstand von nicht mehr viel mehr als bloßen Lippenbekenntnissen der Nuklearwaffenstaaten. Die OSZE-Parlamentarische Versammlung sollte Position beziehen, indem sie die derzeit im Rahmen einer von der Generalversammlung der Vereinten Nationen mandatierten offenen Arbeitsgruppe laufenden Beratungen über effektive rechtliche Maßnahmen für nukleare Abrüstung ausdrücklich unterstützt. Alle OSZE-Staaten sind eingeladen, sich an der Arbeit der in Genf tagenden Gruppen einzubringen. Dankeschön.
Thank you very much. Would anyone wish to speak against Amendment number 9? Yes, back here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are sensitive to the concerns about nuclear threats, particularly a Russian violation of the INF Treaty, doctrinal changes that suggest a greater readiness to use nuclear weapons, and suggestions they could be deployed to Kaliningrad. But the amendment draws a false equivalence between Russian actions and NATO actions. The United States government believes Russia has violated the INF Treaty, made dangerous revisions to its nuclear doctrine, and behaved provocatively in military contacts, as well as threatened to deploy nuclear warheads on Iskander missiles in Kaliningrad. NATO measures have been restrained, transparent, and solely defensive. We believe that the objective of this amendment is a wonderful objective, but there are some practical considerations which force us to ask you to please oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. What is Ms. Sederfeld's opinion of the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Heinzel take up a very important issue on the table. Unfortunately, it's not only an issue between Russia and NATO, it's also an issue that affects all the world. And I think it's important that we as OSCE stand behind that to reduce the number of nuclear weapons. So I am in favor of the amendments. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Rapporteur.
Господин председатель, point of order. Point of order.
Yes, state your point of order.
Господин председатель, вы позволили себе комментировать поправку, оказав, естественно, влияние на окончательные результаты голосования. Мне кажется, это не совсем корректно с вашей стороны. Мы ждали доклада докладчика, госпожи Седерфельд. Вы прокомментировали и продиктовали фактически комитету решение. У нас, естественно, в таком случае, как мне представляется, есть право на ответ. И все-таки первичные действия НАТО, расширение границ и приближение их к Российской Федерации. Россия вынуждена только отвечать. Мы неоднократно об этом предупреждали западных коллег. Позиция России здесь прозрачна и понятна. Поэтому я бы все-таки просил отклонить эту поправку.
Well, thank you. Let me say this. The chair was not aware of making a statement either in favor or opposed to the amendment. If I said something other than thank you to the speakers, I don't recall. But I certainly did not mean to take a position as chair either for or against the amendment. That said, the rapporteur is recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. As this is a very sensitive amendment, and I have listened to all the speakers here, I think it's important to abstain, because this is an issue that includes more than OSCE. And I do also believe that this issue should be handled in another assembly than the OSCE. So I recommend our assembly to abstain. To abstain, to not be either in favor or against. a diplomatic way.
Our, Madam Rapporteur, I'm advised by our parliamentary advisors that abstentions, while counted, do not count, and we, at this point, must either adopt or defeat the amendment. So, but vote however you would like. You've heard the opinion of proponents, opponents, and the rapporteur, and now it's time to vote. So all in favor of the amendment, raise your voting cards.
Maya? 4? 18. Okay. 22 plus 9, 31 in favor.
All right, those opposed, raise your voting cards. We will count.
3.
Let's make sure we're getting the ones in the back.
31 in favor.
31 in favor, 18 opposed, abstentions. Thirteen abstentions, and the amendment is agreed to. We now move on to amendment number 10, and I call on Ms. Abramikienė from Lithuania to propose amendment number 10.
Dear colleagues, this amendment is about using of media in areas of conflict to foment hatred and ethnic tension. Again, hatred, ethnic tension, war propaganda, and misuse of media are things very dangerous nowadays. So I ask you to support this amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Abramikienė. Does anyone wish to speak against amendment number 10? What is Ms. Sederfeldt's position on amendment number 10?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of amendment number 10. Thanks.
Do you yield back the remainder of your time? All in favor of amendment number 10, raise your voting cards. And it seems clear, cards down. All opposed to amendment number 10. Abstentions? Amendment number 10 is adopted. Thank you very much. And I now once again call on Ms. Abramikienė to propose amendment number 11.
Thank you. It's regarding the same topic. OSCE and including Parliamentary Assembly are working hardly to contribute to settling disputes peacefully. From this regard, hate propaganda, including efforts to silence and misinterpret the value and meaning of the principles of the Helsinki Final Act, is unacceptable. I ask you, colleagues, to support this amendment.
And would anyone like to be recognized against amendment number 11? What is Mrs. Sederfeldt's position?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of the amendment number 11. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Are you ready to vote on amendment number 11? All in favor, raise your voting cards. Is it clear enough? Cards down. All those opposed, raise your voting cards. Abstentions? And the amendment is adopted. I now call on Mr. Heinzel from Austria to propose amendment number 12. Mr. Heinzel.
Sehr geehrter Herr Vorsitzender, danke fürs Wort. Meine Ausführungen zum Abänderungsantrag Nummer 9 gelten auch für diesen Abänderungsantrag. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Would anyone care to speak against amendment number 12? Would someone like to be recognized against amendment number 12? Yes, right here.
Уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги, для ядерного разоружения надо создавать все условия. Надо учитывать все факторы, негативно влияющие на стратегическую стабильность. В частности, развертывание американских ПРО, создание высокоточного оружия большей дальности в обычном оснащении, нежелание США взять на себя обязательства не размещать первыми оружие в космосе, отсутствие прогресса в ратификации договора о запрещении ядерных испытаний, сохранение дисбалансов в обычных вооружениях. Да, начать нужно с того, что Россия ответственно подходит к выполнению своих обязательств по договору о нераспространении ядерного оружия. Уже 30 лет мы последовательно сокращаем наш арсенал. Мы привержены комплексной стратегии, подразумевающей сокращение этих арсеналов. Поэтому необходимости в принятии поправки мы не видим.
Thank you very much. What is Ms. Sederfeld's opinion of the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of the amendments. I think it's a very important one to hold an international conference and start the work to limit the number of nuclear power. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I will now put amendment number 12 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 12 please raise their voting cards? Please put your cards down. All those opposed, please raise your voting cards. And it is clear who would abstain. Raise your voting cards if you abstain. And the amendment is adopted. Amendment number 12 is adopted. I now call on Mr. Guminsky from Belarus to propose amendment number 13. Mr. Guminsky.
Спасибо, господин председатель. В данной поправке предлагается дать ссылку на год принятия Венского документа. Его полное название – Венский документ 2011 года о мерах укрепления доверия и безопасности. Кроме этого, хотели бы обратить внимание на необходимость продолжения диалога, направленного на создание условий для модернизации этого документа. Спасибо.
Thank you very, very much. Who wishes to speak against the amendment, number 13? No one seeks recognition. What is Ms. Sederfeld's opinion of the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of the amendments.
I now put the amendment to a vote. All of those in favor of Amendment 13, please raise your voting cards. Cards down. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your voting cards. And abstentions, cards down. Abstentions, any abstentions? Yes. It is clear, and the amendment is adopted. Amendment 13 is adopted. I now call Mr. Kovalev from the Russian Federation to propose amendment number 14. Sir, you are recognized.
Уважаемые коллеги, мы в данном случае предлагаем заменить слово «транснациональный» на слово «международный», поскольку речь идет об осуждении транснационального и международного терроризма прежде всего. С учетом тех событий, которые произошли в последнее время, с учетом роста угрозы террористических атак по всему миру, конечно, правильнее было бы назвать это словом «международный терроризм». Именно об этом и говорит наша поправка. Прошу поддержать.
Thank you. And who wishes to speak against the amendment? Against the amendment? Madam Rapporteur, what is your view on the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of the amendments. Thanks.
Are you ready to vote? All in favor of the amendment, please raise your voting cards. And it seems clear, cards down. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your voting cards. Yes. And card down. And does anyone wish to abstain? Yes. Thank you. And the vote is clear, and the amendment is adopted. Amendment 14 is adopted. Now we come to amendments 15 and 16. They relate to the text in paragraph 10, which is on the situation in Ukraine and the annexation of Crimea. I will therefore group the amendments together for discussion as allowed under Rule 22.7 of the Rules of Procedure. Please note, as I announced earlier, we will then vote on Amendment 16 first, then Amendment 15, in line with Rule 22.5 of the Rules of Procedure. I call on Ms. Abramek-Kini from Lithuania to propose Amendment number 16. Ma'am, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear colleagues, I think we shouldn't get used to annexations and occupations of the territories of neighbor countries. And my proposal is to express grave concern because of occupation, annexation of Crimea, violating of the Helsinki Final Act principles, and what else? I think it's very important to allow free action of SMM in the whole territory of Ukraine. It's a very important paragraph which brings us back to the Helsinki Final Act and its principles.
Thank you. And now, according to the previously announced procedure, I call on Mr. Slutsky from the Russian Federation to speak in favor of Amendment 15. Sir, you are recognized. Mr. Slutsky is recognized.
Морозов.
Very well.
Российская сторона считает, уважаемый председатель, что наша поправка, которая вносит более четкое определение в этот пункт, говорит о следующем, что кризис сегодня идет на Украине, а не вокруг нее. Потому что вокруг нее мы видим крупнейшие учения НАТО, строительство позиционного района ПРО и другие вещи. Поэтому есть предложение и вокруг нее исключить. Кроме этого, когда идет поправка о незаконной аннексии Крыма, то это значит, парламентская ассамблея исключает право народа на самоопределение. И поэтому мы выступаем против вот этого положения, включая незаконную аннексию Крыма. Поправка принципиальная, и просим ее поддержать.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, the chair will call on anyone who would like to speak in opposition to Amendment 16. There is 1 minute for someone who wishes to speak in opposition to Amendment 16. If not, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to Amendment 15? Yes, right here, Slovakia.
History of Europe remember a tragic fate of occupation of Austria in March 1938. It was also followed by a referendum under the slogan Dem Führer dein Ja, and the result was about 94% yes, but it was under the weapons of SS and other occupation powers. That's all.
And we will now move to the rapporteur. Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on both of these amendments?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of Amendment 16. I think it's make clarification to the draft resolution, and I am against Amendment number 15 because in the draft resolution, the wording is expressing the situation as it is. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Rapporteur. I shall now put Amendments 16 and then 15 to the vote in turn. As I announced earlier, if Amendment 16 is adopted, Amendment 15 will be preempted and will not be put to a vote. So are you ready to vote? All in favor of Amendment 16, please raise your voting card. Let's count. Cards down. And all opposed to Amendment 16, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. And abstentions? Thank you very much. And Amendment 16 is adopted. Accordingly, Amendment 15 falls, and we shall now proceed to consideration of Amendment 17. I thank the delegates for their cooperation during this debate. I call on Mr. Tarun from Turkey to propose Amendment number 17. Sir, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The conflict in Syria is now in its 6th year. After 5 years with no solution of this conflict that has engulfed the entire region, that has also become a major source of ISIS terrorism and extremism as a consequence, massive flow of refugees. We believe that one of the major international security objectives to have a stable, united, democratic, and prosperous Syria. Therefore, it is critically important to have a political solution as soon as possible and to reinstate stability in Syria. To achieve this end, to have to support the political solution within the framework of UNSC Resolution 2254 and the basis of Geneva Communique 2012. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone wish to speak against Amendment number 17? Seeing none, Madam Rapporteur, what is your view on Amendment number 17?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of Amendment number 17. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Will all those in favor of Amendment 17 please raise your voting cards? And the outcome appears to be clear. Cards down. Those opposed, raise your voting cards. Those opposed and abstentions. Any abstentions? Yes, thank you. Thank you. And the amendment is agreed to. We'll now move to Amendment 18, and I call on Ms. Fry from Canada to propose Amendment 18. Ma'am, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Amendment 18 is pretty self-explanatory. I think it's a good paragraph, and we need to have women in positions, especially under 1325 of the UN, where we need women to play a strong role in the military dimension. I do think we want to see women not just there because they're women, but we want to see them assume leadership positions, because we think that women have a lot to offer, and to move forward as leaders would be an important piece to add to this.
Thank you. Who would speak against the amendment? Anyone seeking recognition? Ms. Zetterfeld, what is your position on the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of the amendments.
Are you ready to vote? All in favor of the amendment, raise your voting cards. Thank you. And the cards down. Anyone opposed to the amendment, please raise your voting cards. And abstentions? Thank you. Yes, thank you. And the amendment is agreed to. Number 19, I call Ms. Selik from Turkey to propose Amendment 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the rapporteur for her commendable work on the report. We propose to amend provision number 12 by taking out the reference to the harmonization and coordination of national legislation on anti-terrorism and replacing it with a call for strengthening cooperation on anti-terrorism. Each country's legal framework on anti-terrorism differs on the basis of the specific security threats it faces. While terrorism is a global threat and requires a global response, since it presents itself in different forms around the world, the security threats in each state, we believe, would be dealt with more effectively within its own legislative and policy objectives and choices. As such, instead of calling for harmonization and coordination of national legislation, we suggest that the main goal should be to strengthen cooperation to formulate policy and legislative recommendations for the participating states to counter terrorism in the OSCE region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And who will speak against the amendment? Would anyone seek to be recognized? If not, Ms. Sederfeld.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of to keep the paragraph as it is, and I am against amendment number 19. Why am I that? It's because terrorism is a threat all over the world. And I think it's very important that we work on all levels to work against terrorism. And that's what the paragraph 12 is about. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, ma'am. I shall now put Amendment 19 to the vote. Are you ready to vote? All in favor of Amendment 19, please raise your voting card. 1, 2, 3. I have 19. Cards down. All opposed, please raise your voting card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And 9. And abstentions? 1 abstention. By a vote of 26 in favor and 21 opposed with 1 abstention, the amendment is agreed to. And we now move to Amendment 20. I call on Mr. Gagamayan from Armenia to propose Amendment 20. Sir, you are recognized.
На наш взгляд, эта поправка имеет принципиальное значение, потому что во время апрельской войны, навязанной Азербайджаном Нагорно-Карабахской республики, на стороне азербайджанских вооруженных сил воевали игиловцы, Даиш и Джебхат ан-Нусра. Это с полной уверенностью можно утверждать, потому что зверства, чинимые им по обезглавливанию мертвых, убитых воинов и обезглавлению живых воинов Нагорно-Карабахской республики, это почерк Даиш. Стало быть, Даиш имела возможность с территории Азербайджана участвовать в этой террористической войне. Пожалуйста, поддержите эту поправку. Спасибо.
Thank you. Who wishes to speak against the amendment? Anyone at all wishing to speak against the amendment? If not, Ms. Sederfeld, what is your position?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My position is against the amendments. Why? It's because I don't think we should sit here and point out particular terrorist organization. We should defend all terrorist organization. It's a very important issue. Otherwise, we put some terror organization as worse than other. We should not accept terror at all. I am against the amendment. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And the chair is advised that a delegate was seeking recognition to speak against the amendment. So, ma'am, you are recognized now.
Thank you,
I apologize for getting the order confused.
Thank you, Senator. I think that you're totally right. It's, you cannot list just part of the organization. We cannot see Hezbollah in this list. Hezbollah, the Shia organization that even the Gulf countries declared as terror organization, and it's not there. And the main problem is that you cannot list part of the organization because there are sub-terror groups that are not listed here. It's not just ISIL and Jabhat al-Nusra, but also Hezbollah for sure, and there are many organizations that are not listed here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And once again, the chair apologizes for not recognizing members in order. But we're ready to vote. And so I call on members in favor of Amendment 20 to please raise their voting cards. And you may lower your cards. Those opposed, raise your voting cards. And it seems clear. Cards down. Abstentions. Who will abstain? Thank you very much. The amendment is not adopted. And we will now move to Amendment 21. I call on Mr. Kovalev from the Russian Federation to propose Amendment number 21. Sir, you are recognized.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Вы знаете, вот когда смотришь на формулировки пунктов, ну вот пункт 13, призывает ОБСЕ удвоить усилия по оказанию государственным участникам помощи в борьбе с терроризмом. Цифровые показатели меня вообще всегда смущают. Почему только удвоить? Давайте утроим, учетверим и так далее. Но в данном случае мы говорим о принципиальных вещах. В соответствии с нормами международного права мы предлагаем добавить формулировку «с их согласия». Иначе превращается эта помощь в оказание материальной, финансовой поддержки, какой угодно организациям, совершенно неуправляемым, что ведет к нарастанию хаоса в любой стране. Вот почему мы просим эту поправку поддержать.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment number 21? Yes, the delegate from Ukraine.
Our delegation is against this amendment because we think that OSCE has very clear regulation for relations between OSCE and member states, and any mission or operation organized by OSCE has also a very clear mandate. That's why we propose to remain addition proposed by rapporteur.
What is our rapporteur's opinion of the amendment?
My opinion is, sorry, thanks, Mr. Chair. My opinion is to stick to the paragraph. I am against, I opposed the amendments. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
We will now vote on Amendment 21. All in favor, please raise their voting cards. And the cards down. All opposed, raise your voting cards. And it seems clear. Cards down. Abstentions? Abstentions. Yes. Thank you. And the amendment fails. Now, we get to the series of amendments 22 through 26, which I spoke about at the beginning of this session. All of these amendments relate to the text in paragraph 14, which concerns anti-terrorism frameworks. The chair will therefore group the amendments together for discussion as allowed under Rule 22.7 of the Rules of Procedure. Please note I will take the amendments 24 through 26 before amendments 22 and 23 in line with the previous announcement. I call on Mr. Gagamayan from Armenia to propose amendment number 24. Sir, you are recognized for amendment 24.
Наша поправка преследует одну единственную цель – более детализировать пункт 14, который, на наш взгляд, очень актуальный. Позволю себе зачитать. Призывает государства-участники и партнеров по сотрудничеству усовершенствовать свою антитеррористическую правовую базу и практику согласно соответствующим обязательствам и передовой практике ОБСЕ и предлагает институтам ОБСЕ обеспечить соответствующий надзор, необходимый для их применения. Это лаконичная формулировка, которая никоим образом не умаляет достоинства формулировки, представленной уважаемой госпожой Седерфельд. Спасибо.
Thank you. And I now call on Mr. Guminsky from Belarus to propose amendment 25.
Спасибо. Уважаемые коллеги, своей поправкой мы хотим обратить внимание на то, что институты и исполнительные структуры ОБСЕ не обладают надзорными функциями, но могут и должны оказывать содействие, необходимое для применения антитеррористической правовой базы. Спасибо.
I now call on Ms. Selik from Turkey to propose amendment 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We propose to amend Article 14 by specifying that participating states and partners for cooperation may improve their legal framework on anti-terrorism in line with the OSCE best practices as found appropriate by the national authorities in order to emphasize both the discretion and the jurisdiction of the national authorities in determining and implementing legislative reforms. Thank you.
I now call on Mr. Kovalev from the Russian Federation to propose amendments 22 and 23, and perhaps, since it's two amendments, the gentleman will be given 2 minutes to speak in favor of these.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Я думаю, что уложусь короче. Мы предлагаем здесь воспользоваться авторитетом такой международной организации, как Организация Объединенных Наций. Вот почему, по нашему мнению, эта поправка просто необходима. Она усилит текст, который доведен почти до совершенства госпожой Седерфельд, но тем не менее нам бы хотелось, чтобы упоминание об Организации Объединенных Наций обязательно было в этой поправке. И в пункте 14 после слов «Институтом ОБСЕ» мы предлагаем добавить формулировку «в соответствии с их мандатом». Вот это четкое соблюдение мандата и не выход за пределы мандата, которым определяет место и роль в этом процессе, нам представляется принципиально важным. Поэтому просим поддержать наши поправки.
All right, my colleagues, we now have before us amendments 24, 25, 26, and then 22 and 23. Who wishes to speak against Amendment 24? If not, who wishes to speak against Amendment number 25? Seeing no one, who wishes to speak against Amendment 26? And 22? Would anyone wish to speak against 23? I think you're ready to vote. Well, no, let's hear from our rapporteur on this series of amendments. You are recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor to keep the paragraph as it is. And this means that I oppose the amendments. I think it's the best way to keep the paragraph as it is because it's clean. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. And we will now vote. And again, we'll put the amendments to a vote in this order: 24, then 25, 26, and then 22 and 23. Please note that if Amendment 24 is adopted, subsequent amendments will fall and not be put to a vote, and so on and so forth. The question now is on Amendment 24. All in favor of the amendment, raise your voting cards. Thank you. Thank you. And cards down. All opposed to Amendment 24, raise your voting cards. And the issue is clear. Who would abstain on Amendment 24? And Amendment 24 is defeated. The question now is on Amendment number 25. Are you ready to vote? All in favor of Amendment number 25, raise your voting card. Thank you. Thank you. And cards down. Opposed to Amendment 25. Raise your voting cards. And the issue is clear. You may put your cards down. Who will abstain from Amendment 25? Thank you very much. And Amendment 25 is not adopted. The question now is on Amendment 26. All in favor of Amendment 26, please raise your voting cards. Thank you, and cards down. All opposed, please raise your voting cards. And the amendment appears to fail. Who will abstain from Amendment 26? Thank you, and the amendment is not agreed to. And we now move to Amendment 22. Amendment 22. All in favor of Amendment 22, please raise your voting cards. All right, all cards down. Thank you very much. All opposed, please raise your voting cards. And thank you. Place your cards down. All who would abstain. Thank you very much. And by a vote of 19 in favor and 29 opposed, the amendment is not agreed to. And finally, we will vote on Amendment 23. Are members ready to vote? All in favor of Amendment 23, please raise your voting cards. And cards down. Thank you. All opposed, please raise your voting cards. And it is clear. Does anyone wish to abstain? Thank you very much. And the amendment is defeated. And once again, the chair thanks members for their cooperation in that series of votes. Amendment number 27 and 28 relate to the text in paragraph 15, which regards targeting terrorist activities. I will therefore group the amendments together for discussion as allowed under Rule 22.7 of the Rules of Procedure. I call on Mr. Kovalev of the Russian Federation to propose Amendment 27. You are recognized.
Уважаемые коллеги, мы предлагаем не заменить, а дополнить этот пункт, и нам представляется опять-таки, что эта поправка носит принципиальный характер. В уставе ООН все эти процедуры прописаны, поэтому мы предлагаем следовать именно этой логике, тем документам, которые приняты и одобрены международным сообществом. Поэтому мы и предлагаем вот эту поправку. Спасибо. Я надеюсь на вашу поддержку.
Thank you very much. And the chair now calls on Mr. Kostunov from the Russian Federation to propose Amendment 28.
Уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги, мы предлагаем в пункте 15, после слов «ключевым принципом ОБСЕ» снять конец пункта. Спасибо.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, would anyone wish to speak against Amendment 27? 27. Would anyone wish to speak against Amendment 28? If not, we'll move to the rapporteur. Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on Amendments 27 and 28?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am against Amendment 27 and against Amendment 28. And I am this because they are contradictory. In 27, it says include freedom of expression, and in paragraph 28, it says delete including freedom of expression. And it's 5 persons who are identical who have signed 27, and it's 5 persons who are identical who have signed Amendment 28. So I am against the 2 amendments. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
We'll now put the question on Amendment 27. I would remind...
Mr. Chairman, on a point of...
yes, a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just from a procedural perspective, I would have thought that if Amendment 27 is adopted, Amendment 28 falls, because it's amending the original text, and Amendment 27 is a replacing paragraph.
That is correct. Yes, that will be the procedure, and it was
that was stated.
the procedure that we used. Perhaps I should have restated that. If 27 is adopted, 28 will fall and not be put to a vote. The gentleman is correct. Are there any other questions? Are you ready to vote? Will all of those in favor of 27 please raise your voting cards? All right, and please put your cards down. Those opposed to Amendment 27, please raise your voting cards. Let's count. Abstentions? Any abstentions? Thank you. And by a vote of 12 in favor and 21 opposed. Well, I'm sorry, 33 opposed. The amendment is not agreed to. We will now vote on Amendment 28. Will all in favor of Amendment 28 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Cards down. Those opposed, please raise your voting cards. And the outcome is clear. Please lower your voting cards. Would anyone wish to abstain on Amendment 28? Thank you very much. And so Amendments 27 and 28 are both defeated. We'll now move to Amendment 29, and I once again call on Ms. Selick from Turkey to propose Amendment 29.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We propose to broaden the scope of the actors and agencies involved in the information sharing networks referred to in Article 16, since currently it is limited to anti-terrorist subdivisions of intelligence services, and each participating state might have different institutional structures for that function. We believe that the participating states and the partners for cooperation should strive for greater information sharing and interaction between all relevant national agencies, including law enforcement and intelligence agencies, in order to more effectively monitor and counter terror threats and improve security in the OSCE region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 29? Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on Amendment 29?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My opinion is to oppose Amendment 29. I'm in favor for the paragraph. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Setterfeld. Are you ready to vote? All in favor of Amendment 29, please raise your voting cards. Cards down. Thank you. Could we have a show of those votes again? Because we have a difference at the table. We'll count very carefully. Those in favor of Amendment 29, raise your voting cards. Okay, those opposed, raise your voting cards. And it's clear after all. Cards down, abstentions, abstentions. Thank you. And the amendment is adopted. Number 29 is adopted. Number 30, I call on Mr. Kovalev of the Russian Federation to propose Amendment 30.
Уважаемые коллеги, я хочу выразить вам благодарность за принятие поправки 29. Наши турецкие коллеги представили более развернутую поправку, чем мы сформулировали в своей поправке номер 30. В этой связи мы снимаем поправку 30 с голосования и считаем, что 29-й поправкой мы этот вопрос решили. Спасибо вам за понимание и за поддержку. Мне кажется, это абсолютно правильное и выверенное решение со стороны комитета.
The mover of the amendment asked to withdraw the amendment. Is there objection? There being no objection, the amendment is withdrawn, and we will now move to Amendment 31. I call on Ms. Abramikienė from Lithuania to propose Amendment 31.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is very simple. Methodology of the OEC includes both early warning and early action. This is why I'd like to insert the words early action after early warning.
And does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 31? If not, what is Ms. Setterfeld's opinion concerning Amendment 31?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of Amendment 31. Thanks.
I shall now put Amendment 31 to a vote. All in favor, raise your voting cards. Thank you. All opposed, raise your voting cards. Any abstentions? And the amendment is agreed to. We now move to Amendment 32. I call on Mr. Heinzel from Austria to propose Amendment number 32. Sir, you are recognized.
Danke, Herr Vorsitzender, werte Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Meine Ausführungen zum Abänderungsantrag Nummer 9 gelten auch für diesen Abänderungsantrag Nummer 32 sowie für die Abänderungsanträge 33 und 34. Dankeschön.
Thank you. Who seeks recognition in opposition to the amendment? Anyone at all? If not, Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on Amendment 32?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of Amendment 32. Thanks.
Will all those in favor of Amendment 32 please raise their voting cards? Cards down. All opposed, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. And abstentions? Thank you. And the amendment number 32 is adopted.
Senator, the Austrian gentleman has already spoken in favor of 33 and 34, so just ask if somebody wants to speak against.
Now, Mr. Heinzel, you have already spoken in favor of amendments 33 and 34. Do I understand you do not wish to speak further on those amendments? If not, would anyone like to speak against amendments 33 or 34? Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on amendment 33?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of amendment 33. Thanks.
And we now move to a vote on amendment 33. Are you ready to vote? All in favor of amendment 33, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. And cards down. All opposed? And cards down. Abstentions? Thank you. Thank you. And the amendment is adopted. We'll now move to vote on amendment 34. Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on amendment 34?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's very difficult to say anything about it, but I am in favor of it. Of course I am, that the parliamentarians should take part, but I don't think that actually it's a question for us to decide about, but I am in favor of it. Thanks.
Thank you, and we are now ready to vote on amendment 34. All those in favor, raise your voting cards. All right, you may lower your cards. Those opposed, raise your voting cards. And thank you, those abstaining. Yes. And the amendment is adopted. We now consider amendment 35. I'll call on Mr. Varamenos from Greece to propose amendment 35.
Opposed?
Sir, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
We're suggesting replacing paragraph 18, which calls for greater cooperation with the ASEAN and the Mediterranean OSCE partners for cooperation in tackling human trafficking and their link to terrorism and illegal migration, as the suggested cooperation framework is restricted and too vague as for its purposes.
Thank you. And would anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Seeing no one, Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion on amendment number 35?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's very easy to say that all the issues, the crimes that are mentioned here shouldn't be acceptable and we should defend them, not defend, work against them. But I actually think that the paragraph 18 is better, and I do that because it's wider. It includes, it doesn't say a specific act. It's include all that's in link to terrorist and illegal migration. So I am in favor of the paragraph and I am against the amendments. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
And we're now ready to vote on amendment 35. Those in favor of the amendment, please raise your voting cards. Cards down. All opposed, please raise your voting cards. And thank you, and those abstaining. Okay, by a vote of 24 in favor and 27 opposed, the amendment is not adopted. Our closest vote so far today. Number 36, Mr. Abe from Switzerland is recognized to propose his amendment. Sir, you are recognized.
Herr Vorsitzender, geschätzte Damen und Herren, dieser Aspekt ergänzt ein weiteres Element unseres Ansatzes, Terrorismus zu bekämpfen. Zusätzlich zu den Paragraphen 14 bis 17 beschriebenen Maßnahmen, Anpassung des gesetzlichen Rahmens, nationale Aktionspläne, Informationsaustausch, Frühwarnsysteme ist aus unserer Sicht die Prävention zu erwähnen. Denn dies ist ein wichtiger Aspekt unseres Ansatzes.
Thank you. Would anyone wish to be recognized against the amendment? Against the amendment? Ms. Setterfeld, what is your position on the amendment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of the amendments.
Are you ready to vote? All those in favor of Amendment 36, raise your voting cards. And it seems clear. Cards down. Those opposed, please raise your voting cards. And abstentions. Thank you, and the amendment is adopted. The chair now recognizes Mr. Popov from Ukraine to propose Amendment 37.
We see in situation in Ukraine, and not only in Ukraine, that role of foreign terrorist fighters became stronger and stronger, and they're used by foreign countries to de-establish situation in different countries, in different conflicts. So we propose our amendment.
Who wishes to speak against Amendment number 37? Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion regarding Amendment 37?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of Amendments 37. Thanks.
I will now put Amendment 37 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 37 please raise their voting cards? And thank you. You may lower your cards. All opposed? And thank you. And all abstaining. Please raise your cards. Thank you. Yes, thank you. And the amendment is adopted. Amendment 37 is adopted, and we now call on Ms. Abramkienė from Lithuania to propose Amendment 38.
Dear Chairman, I hope my first name is easier
It
for
really
everybody.
is. Dear Vilja.
I suggest
Yes.
to use it. Dear colleagues, we all believe that our discussions, our meetings, our declarations have been provided not in vain. We want them to be implemented. And very important declarations we adopted in Baku and Helsinki sessions. So it adds, I think, valuable reminding of our declarations to the text.
And who would seek recognition in opposition to Amendment 38? Madam Rapporteur, what do you say to Amendment 38?
I am in favor of Amendment 38, Mr. Chair.
Are you ready to vote? All in favor of Amendment 38, please raise your voting cards. Thank you, and lower your cards. All opposed to Amendment 38, please raise your voting cards. And any abstentions? Abstentions. And the amendment is agreed to. All right. Once again, a series of amendments. Amendments 39, 40, and 41 relate to the text in paragraph 20, which regards territorial integrity. The chair will therefore group the amendments together for discussion as allowed under Rule 22.7. I call on Ms. Abramkienė from Lithuania to propose Amendment 39.
Thank you. It's very clear position. I'm calling Russian Federation to stop annexation of Crimea and to restrain its aggressive practices.
And the chair will now call on Mr. Slutsky from the Russian Federation to propose Amendment 40.
Вместо Слуцкого Костунов, тоже автор поправки. Уважаемые коллеги, хотел бы напомнить вам, что в 2014 году легитимно избранные депутаты по украинскому законодательству в Автономной Республике Крым сначала приняли решение о проведении референдума, на котором абсолютное большинство высказалось за отделение от Украины и присоединение к Российской Федерации. Дальше эти же легитимно избранные по украинскому законодательству депутаты обратились к Российской Федерации с тем, чтобы мы приняли их в состав Российской Федерации. Никакого решения о какой бы то ни было аннексии Российская Федерация не принимала. Этот пункт некорректен. Мы просто ответили на запрос автономного образования, где в результате референдума было принято некоторое решение. Что касается постоянных заявлений о том, что якобы это сделано под дулами солдат, я понимаю, что у кого-то есть желание ввести туда своих солдат и под дулами уже тех автоматов заставить людей изменить мнение. Это в корне неверно, просим изменить этот пункт.
Thank you, sir. And now the chair calls on Mr. Abe from Switzerland to propose his Amendment 41.
Ja, Herr Vorsitzender, geschätzte Damen und Herren, wir sind für Streichen. Die illegale Annexion der Autonomen Republik Krim meint schon eine aggressive Praktik und setzt eine solche voraus.
Thank you. Now, does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 39? If not, does anyone wish to speak against Amendment number 40? Yes, the delegate from Ukraine. Sir, you are recognized.
Антон Геращенко, член парламента Украины. Представитель российской делегации просто-напросто манипулирует фактами. По Конституции Украины любые решения об увеличении территории или уменьшении территории принимаются только всеукраинским референдумом. Такой референдум не проводился. Отдельные области территории Украины не имели права на отделение. И все, что касается аннексии Крыма, это были действия агрессивной Российской Федерации с использованием вооруженных сил Российской Федерации по нападению на территорию Украины. Поэтому предлагаем не поддерживать поправку Российской Федерации.
And now the chair calls on Mr. Abe. No, now the chair asks if anyone wishes to speak against Amendment number 41, and the chair recognizes the delegate from the Russian Federation. You are recognized.
Уважаемые друзья, мы, конечно, не можем поддержать эту поправку, так как там остается упоминание якобы о некоторой аннексии. Хочу напомнить, что в 2014 году, в феврале, на Украине произошел вооруженный государственный переворот, поддержанный Соединенными Штатами. Об этом неоднократно признавали официальные лица Соединенных Штатов. Причем там Джо Байден напрямую требовал от президента Януковича. Кстати, где обвинения против Януковича? Его ищут сейчас в международном пространстве. Тогда Джо Байден напрямую потребовал убрать силы правопорядка с улиц Киева. В условии вооруженного противостояния на Украине действительно легитимно избранные депутаты были вынуждены принимать решения. Российская Федерация просто не позволила убивать там людей. Поэтому мы не можем поддержать этот пункт о полном манипулировании. Приезжайте в Крым, мы всех приглашаем. Сейчас я вижу какое-то искусственное создание барьера, чтобы люди не получили информацию о том, что происходит в Крыму, как там развивается ситуация. Российская Федерация готова обеспечить всяческую поддержку любому независимому наблюдателю. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. And before I call on Ms. Setterfeld for her opinion of the amendment, let's reiterate the rules that govern the votes that are upcoming. If Amendment 39 is adopted, Amendments 40 and 41 will be preempted and will not be put to a vote. If Amendment 39 is not adopted, but Amendment 40 is adopted, Amendment 41 will once again be preempted and not be put to a vote. Ms. Setterfeld, what is your opinion of the amendments?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I will speak about all the three of them, 39, 40, 41, and I am in favor of the paragraph as it's written, and I am against paragraph, all the three of them. Amendments, Amendments 39, Amendments 40, Amendments 41. Thanks.
All right. You've heard from various sides of the issue, and we're now ready to put the amendments to a vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 39 please raise their voting cards? Amendment 39. You may put your cards down. And all opposed to Amendment 39, please raise your voting cards and keep them raised. And abstentions. All right, thank you. Now, by a vote of 28 in favor and 35 opposed, the amendment is not adopted. Therefore, we will move to a vote on Amendment 40. Will all those in favor of Amendment 40 please raise their voting cards? Thank you very much, and you may lower your cards. Those opposed to Amendment 40, please raise your voting cards. And the issue is clear. You may lower your cards. Abstentions? Any abstentions? Thank you. And Amendment 40 is defeated. I shall now proceed to Amendment 41. Will all those in favor of Amendment 41 please raise your voting cards? And thank you. Please lower your cards. Those opposed? And the issue is clear. Lower your voting cards. Are there abstentions? Thank you. And the amendment is not agreed to. And will members bear with the chair for one moment? Thank you very much for your cooperation this morning. And when you see our translators, let's give our translators a round of applause and show our appreciation. We've gotten a great deal of work done this morning, and that's largely thanks to the cooperation of all members. We will continue consideration of amendments to the draft resolution supplementary items at our next meeting this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. in this room. Thank you, and we're in recess.
So what did you say, Gustavo, about the time? It was something 1 o'clock.
So at 1 o'clock is this meeting of the drafting committee.
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, I'm aware.
if you can be there, fine. Otherwise, I mean, if you want, I can represent
I will see. I must check when the
Right.
ad hoc committee on migration meet,
Oh,
because
that's right,
I'm a
yeah.
member of that.
Oh, that's
council.
correct. Yeah.
If it's the same time, I think